Hi guys, over the course of the next few days, I'm going to be detailing this Kia Picanto. So that means I want to be covering key areas such as the engine bay. We're also going to be going quite in depth with the interior as well. So that means I'm going to break out the carpet shampooer, the steam cleaner, and also the Tornador. And if you don't know what a Tornador is, by the end of this video, you're probably going to want one. But not only that, we're actually going to be focusing heavily on the exterior bodywork. So that involves giving it a decon wash, a clay bar, a proper two-stage machine polish, and then I'm going to finish it off with something special over the bodywork just to protect it. Now, on the face of it, this car doesn't actually look too bad, but believe me when I say this, for me personally, this is going to be the toughest job I've ever done so far in my career, and it's got nothing to do with the cleanliness of the car. It's got everything to do with the backstory. On this channel, I like to give back by cleaning cars for free, and it was a few years ago I cleaned my next door neighbour Felicity's car and actually featured it on the channel. She was like a mother to me, and she's been supporting me on this adventure since day one, and she got herself this Kia Picanto last year, which was booked in for a clean, and she was desperately looking forward to seeing it being featured on the channel. However, the last time I saw her was on Mother's Day, as unfortunately the day after she passed away. This car has sat here ever since. It's been outside and I've looked at it every single day, and I've really wanted to work on this one because I've got this thing that's kind of haunting me about it. And when she was alive, I kept saying to her literally every week, oh, I'll clean your car for you next week. I'll do it next week. I'll do it next week. And something always crops up, and I had to keep knocking it on the head, and I kept saying, oh, I'm sorry, I'm busy this week, I've got no time, or it's too hot, or it's too cold, or there's always something. And she never got to see this car looking its best, and that really bugs me because I know I can make this car look amazing, but she's never going to see it in all its glory. Anyway, it's time to inspect the Kia Picanto, and this car has something on the paintwork which many of you probably haven't seen before. When you look closely, you can see the exterior is covered in fly poo because we live on a farm. I mean, look at that, it's literally everywhere, but because it's sat around for a good 6 months or so, all this dirt has also got just embedded in here. This really will need the deepest of deep cleans. Engine bay wise, it doesn't look too bad, so I'm going to get away with just blasting the seals here with a pressure washer and maybe a citrus pre-wash, but for the main components in the middle, I think I can be quite lucky and just use my Tornador foam cannon, because basically it's the same as what you would find with a normal snow foam cannon, but without being connected to the pressure washer, it's actually connected to the air compressor instead. So you're going to be using less product, less water, and you're going to be relying heavily on the air pressure, which is basically just going to clean everything. So it's a combination of all three elements to make this actually work. And trust me, they are so good, but nobody really goes on about them. What you can see here is some white staining on the alloys, which is actually corrosion. And it doesn't matter how you clean them up, because whenever you see them like this, then it's time for a refurb. Steering wheel wise, there are some nasty marks on here. I am going to try and remove them. I can see clearly where either her or the previous owner has been wearing a ring and they've just scratched it up, or whether it's their jewellery, but you can see the marks on the leather and on this plastic as well. But I'm quite hopeful I can restore that with just a bit of polish, because it doesn't feel that deep. So looking at a gear stick, these numbers and this letter R, they should actually be white, but that's dirt that's kind of got embedded in there, and you can see it's starting to go in those little gaps as well. That's where the steam cleaner is going to come in handy. The inside was mainly surface dirt, which will be easy enough to clean up, and the rest of it on the exterior was just months and months of build-up. Wiper blades definitely need a clean. After inspecting the door shuts, it was time to get this car out. Once I'd moved the world's heaviest door. I've had to wait till 6 PM in the afternoon to do this because the sun has been so intense today. It's been ridiculously warm. Not that I'm moaning, I am British though, but now I have the right amount of shade, or just enough shade, to get this job done. During the video, I will go through all the chemicals I'm using, and I will put links and discount codes in the description below. My first port of call was the wheels, and I'm starting off by using Incinerate Wheel and Tyre Cleaner, which has been diluted down by 10 to 1, hence it's not in the original bottle. Next up, I wanted to spray some all-purpose cleaner on the wheel arches, and the reason I chose this over a citrus pre-wash was because I wanted to see if there was any significant difference between the two chemicals. So one thing I decided to do first was to play it safe. However, I didn't anticipate the brake dust to be so stubborn. So I did go around the wheels a few times after this first initial hit with Incinerate, but then I also decided to use some fallout remover on top, and then I wanted to give it the best fighting chance of actually cleaning these alloys, so I then layered it up on top with some wheel foam. Once fully dwelled, I broke out the Temu brush, which was hanging on by a thread, but it was still working nevertheless. Moments later, I used these small wheel mitts from a company called Microfiber just to clean up the faces. I do love cleaning cars this time of the year in the evenings, but it's amazing how quickly you get lost in the moment. Because I find it a form of therapy, and it is enjoyable, but before you know it, the sun's going down and you're running out of daylight, so then it does become a mission to get it all finished. The fuel cap took multiple hits of APC, but I eventually got there with a little help from a medium stiffness brush. Thankfully, the door shuts came up a lot easier, so I continued with the APC and then rinsed it away. The only real area where I turn off the pressure washer now is the boot shut, because if you get that headlining wet, it can be problematic. For the gutters around the engine bay, I just carried out the same process. However, this time around I kept the pressure washer on. And that's because I was confident the car wouldn't suffer any damage if I splashed the engine bay. The next thing on the to-do list was to break out the citrus pre-wash and cover the entire car in the solution, which isn't something I normally do, but on this occasion it was much needed if I was going to stand a chance of removing any of the embedded particles. So this funky looking snow foam is in fact Infinity Wax Power Foam, which they kindly made up just for this video, as Felicity was a colourful character. And although people describe these types of foams as show foam, not snow foam, I will add that being an alkaline foam, this did an excellent job of shifting the surface dirt from the car. But there are a few things which snow foam can't remove, which you will see in a moment. But actually, it'll be great to get some feedback from you guys. Are you a lover or a hater of coloured foams? Let me know in the comments. After rinsing it all away, it was time for the contact wash. So the bodywork on this is, well, let me put it this way. You know how you can, in the summer, you get little drops of fly poo? Well, this is on a level that I've never experienced before. So to get it off, what I've done is I've laid it up with some more power foam and I'm basically going over it. So before you frown upon this method, because a lot of people say you should never snow foam and just chuck the mitt over it, I already have carried out the pre-wash. So this is totally safe way of doing it, but it just helps tackle this fly poo. But I'm having a feeling here that I'm gonna have to get this washed down, put the car in, and then give it a proper clay bar if I'm gonna have any chance of getting this out, because it's so embedded in, where the car has sat around for 6 months and it's had the sun hitting the same panels, so it's gradually just baked it into the paintwork. So at this point, I'm just gonna have to wash it, see how far it goes, put it inside, and then we are gonna have to break out the polishers. At this point, you'd think, okay, the car is clean, let's move on. But no, far from it, because now I have to get rid of any iron particles, which are these tiny dots which you may really only see on white, silver or yellow paint jobs. But nevertheless, I wanted to do this because it makes life so much easier for the clay bar process, and it reduces the risk of me picking up any nasty particles and just rubbing them around causing scratches. I mean, would you look at that? So it just shows you it doesn't matter how much snow foam, how much shampoo you use. When it comes down to it, there's so many contaminants in that bodywork. With a good percentage of fallout removed, I just wanted to go over it one more time with the car shampoo before putting it into the garage to dry. It's looking good, we're getting there. Crikey, this paint, it does feel really rough. I can tell you this, the door shuts have come up lovely. I would love to say I've got over the worst of this car now, but there's going to be a lot of machine polishing involved with this one, a lot. Once I finished drying the car and got approval from my cat Leo, I decided to call it a day and crack on the following morning. Right, so I'm going to clean the engine bay. I'm actually going to be using a Tornador connected to an air compressor. This basically means that I'm going to be able to get a safer clean on the engine bay without going OTT with a pressure washer. However, I understand many of you probably won't have tools like this or the air compressor, so I will link some other videos in the description below. Oh yeah, and by the way, these things get really loud. Now, at the beginning of the video, I said I was going to use the Tornador foam cannon. But because I had a limited window for filming outside the day before, it just wasn't possible to use it. And because I had already carried out a deep clean on the exterior, I thought it would make sense for me just to use this one instead. So this cannon is very easy to use. It has an on-off valve and the chemical solution comes out like a fine mist. But it's the combination of the compressed air and the chemical that gives you that deep clean. And then if the surface feels slightly wet, all you got to do is turn the dial off and it will dry it out pretty quickly. But I also kept an old rag close by just to wipe away any remaining residue that may have had any grease on it. Now it's time to use a product called Liquify. So we're going to spray the entire vehicle with rotar remover. We're going to remove any of those nasty particles and then we're going to start clay barring. This just saves us picking up any rotar within the clay bar and it just reduces that risk of scratching the paintwork. This next process involves me removing the last contaminants with a clay block. And the reason I chose this was because time wasn't on my side, and it is a quick and easy way of getting the job done. However, the clay block, as good as it is, it really does have its limitations, and as I found in this case, it wasn't quite enough to shift everything. So in the end, I decided to use a clay bar instead. In all the years that I've done this business, there's always another challenge that you face where you think, oh, I've never come across this before. This is definitely one of those moments because it's so stubborn, and I don't think this has ever had this kind of love and care in its entire life. With the decontamination stage complete and the hard water removed from the badges, it was finally time to break out the polisher. And because it had white paint, it meant two things. Number one, it's harder to see the scratches, which is a good thing. And number two, because it is white paint, it's pretty hard to make that colour pop. So I was planning on using two compounds to achieve the results I wanted. The first compound I'm using is from a company called Svizzer, and I'm using this with their orange medium pad, as it's a good all-rounder. And to be honest, for most of you, this alone is going to be plenty good enough. And you don't get any swells with this product when you use it with the polisher. One thing I will add for those of you who want to get involved with polishing is you need an awful lot of patience. You can't just whiz around with the polisher and hope for the best. You need to work on areas approximately 40 to 60 centimeters at a time, and you do get those moments when you feel like giving up. And that's because you're in the same position carrying out the same motions, which can get tiring on your arms and shoulders, so make sure you give yourself plenty of breaks in between the panels. Day number 3, it's awfully hot and I'm in my trousers because all my shorts are packed for holiday. So the plan of action is simple. We're going to be using Meguiars Ultimate Polish. We're going to finish all the machine polishing. We're going to wax this car. Oh, by the way, we've got another car in here, but this is going to be revealed on our other channel, Epic Car Show. So make sure you subscribe to that. I've also got a bit of help here as we've got Matt in the office. Hello. Doing a bit of editing. So yeah, we've got a full house here today. So we've got 2 vehicles in here. The Kia's looking pretty good. Still got a little way to go yet, but after we've done all that polishing, we're going to make a start on the interior. So I featured this polish from Meguiars a few weeks ago, and we did a comparison against the Ultimate Compound on our faded yellow Focus, so I won't give away too much about what happens in that video. And later on I will be putting a special product on top which really finishes it off and it gives it an incredible gloss. But for now, it's time to get cracking on the interior. It's quite a challenge doing this because I'm now on day 3. I think honestly, if I wasn't filming and rigging up all these cameras, I probably could have done this easily in a day and a half, but because I'm filming it for you guys, it's taking forever. Still, I love it. As always with the interior, I'm starting off with the boots, which wasn't too bad, thankfully. And the chemical of choice I'm using here is a product called Yum Interior, and this is a personal favourite of mine. And it's not something I use on every car, but it's something I like to use as a special treat. And here's just a word of advice for anybody who cleans the interior. The best way that I find to do this is to start from the very back and work your way forward, because any loose items can be bagged up and put back in the boot, and this is very handy if you're working outside and it does start raining. I also occasionally use the steam cleaner just to shift off any of the last remaining bits of dirt within the door shuts. And you also have to remember, whenever you run the seats forwards or backwards, you will find it drop pieces of dirt or crumbs onto the carpet. I see it happen so many times, so be very thorough when cleaning under the seats. Despite being a relatively clean interior, I found some spores of mould, which is something you should remove immediately as it can get worse over time. And for passengers with health issues, sitting in that car can be a lot more harmful than you think. I was making great progress on the interior, but now it was time to break out the steamer for a special task. Anyway, the plan of action with this is to clean up this gear knob here, because where it's got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and the R for reverse, there is a lot of embedded dirt in there, and I think just using a cocktail stick probably won't be enough. So I'm using a bit of steam, a bit of air pressure, and I may even revert to using a scrub pad afterwards, but I think I should be able to do this in a matter of seconds. Before I put the Karcher SC3 away, I just wanted to finish off a few more jobs. Once satisfied with the results, I could jump onto the tyres, and I'm sticking with my £2 Temu tyre brush, as I'm curious to see how long it will last. The tyre gel of choice is the new and improved formula by Infinity Wax, and it's fast becoming my go-to gel as it's very easy to apply, not too thick, and it leaves you with a nice uniform finish. I like that, love that combination, they're really good. So I've covered a large area of the car now, so we are making good progress, but there's one area where I have become stuck, and that is with the mats. Doesn't matter how much you hoover them, because they're Kia mats, they're very cheap quality, and it's very difficult to get all the grains of dirt out of it. So what I am going to use instead is revert back to the Tornador, which we previously used on the engine bay, and I'm also going to use this around where the pedals are as well. The Tornador is such a brilliant tool, however it's hard to tell whether it's a worthy rival to a dry ice machine at this stage, but it's something I'd like to put head to head in a later video as it cost a fraction of the price. I continued using it for all the little bits like the boot lining and the parcel shelf too, as it will be less aggressive than a vacuum cleaner on that poor quality fabric. Here I'm quickly trying out a new product called Kronos from a company called Labo Cosmetica, which is designed to make exhaust tip cleaning much easier, and we have a full review on this coming very soon. Oh wow, look at that. You wouldn't want to lick that in a hurry. That is vile. And broken. Earlier I said I wanted to enhance the gloss on the Kia by using a special product, and the item I've chosen is called Diabolo, and it's a PTFE wax, similar to the legendary Fuso coat. And although I'm not a fan of waxing cars because of the time it takes compared to using a foam sealant, on this occasion I'm making an exception because this just isn't any old car. This is a vehicle that helped one of the most kindest people I've ever known get to her job of nursing and helping the sick before she left this world. This was a woman who always made such an impact on my life and my family's. And she loved this Kia. Was it perfect? No, it wasn't. But to her it was everything, and that's all that mattered. And now it's time for the final results.